Caminante no hay camino. Se hace el camino al andar. It's one of my favorite quotes. In English, it means something like, traveler, there is no path. We make the path by walking. The word camino can be translated a lot of different ways. I just used it path in that translation, but you can also use it as road, or you might know the Camino in Spain. People often translate it as the way. I like to use the way on Palm Sunday because the way is such an important part of our faith. You know, some people in their translations of the scriptures say that Jesus invited us to live or to be a part of the way. And our presiding bishop, Michael Curry, our former presiding bishop, started a small reformation in the Episcopal Church by encouraging us all to walk in the way of love that Jesus did. Way is about the journey, which is what our faith is. It's not something we do just one day, it's something we do again and again. It's a choice about how we live our lives. And it's not just our journey, it's a journey that we're all a part of together. A journey that all the Christians who have come before us and the Christians who are not yet born will join us in, and Christians all over the world. It's about trusting in our future even when we're not sure what's going to be. It's about connecting us to all of the people who have come before us, and it's about choosing the path that we live as a path of following Jesus day in and day out. The thing about journeys and paths and traveling, and therefore the thing about life, is that it depends where you're standing, how you think of it, right? I mean, there are things that seem devastating when they're happening, but then later down the line, you can look at them with some sense of humor. I mean, think about your first heartbreak, right? It was devastating. It was like the end of the world, and now you're like, that person didn't even deserve my time. I mean, they were 14, right? So were you know? But it was important at that moment. And there are things that we enjoy right now that maybe in the future we're going to say, oh, that went too far. That wasn't the right thing, or I was making the wrong choice. All we have in some ways in our journey is the path we're making right now. Because how do we know where we're going until we get there? Sometimes we don't. Today, our journey takes a dramatic pivot. On the one hand, we've been waiting all this time, like all of Lent, all 40, well, what are we at, 34? It's not a math sermon. We've been working through the season of Lent to prepare ourselves to journey with Jesus in the last days of his life. And that journey begins today. But it's a pretty dramatic shift, isn't it? It was so fun. We had palms and we pressed in and they were singing, and now things take a turn. Now the journey looks a little bit different. And even though we've been preparing for it all this time, somehow it feels like it got here too quickly. Because even though we know what's going to happen a week from today, even though we know that there are good things that come from difficult times, I don't want to do this again. Am I the only one? No. Right? I mean, we know this story. We know this story because some of us have heard it a number of times, but also because we know this story, right? We know what it's like to be or to feel abandoned and betrayed. We know what it's like to be betrayed by our own selves, right? To know that we should be making different choices, that we should stay awake, that we should stay fast with the friendship and the commitments that we've made, but to find ourselves being betrayed by our own actions. We know what it's like to be on trial, maybe not literally, but to feel like the whole world stacked against us and everything is unfair. We know what it's like to suffer and to struggle. We know this story. But this story isn't just our story, it's God's story. And I always try on Palm Sunday not to say too much, but I've probably already said too much. Because what can I add to this story that tells us so much? But for me, one of the things I hope you will most realize today as we listen to this story is that our story is God's story, and God's story is our story. It's a story that we know because we've walked it, and it's a story that people all over the world walk. All the people who are on their journeys, whatever that might be, people, migrants and immigrants, and people who don't know where they're going to sleep tonight, people who feel like there's just the thinnest line left in their faith, and they're not quite sure that they can keep doing this. people who aren't sure if the choices they're making are the right ones, people who are sure the choices they are making aren't the right ones. All of us, wherever we are on our journey, God is with us in that journey. God walks the path we walk. The path we make by walking, we make it with God. So I invite you today, as we listen to this story, to really listen. To listen to where God is speaking to you in your own life, in your own journey. The story may be one that you know, and yet it may be different than you've ever heard it before, because it depends on where you are on your journey, how God might speak to you about where you're going, where you've been, and where you are now. Let us journey together. Let us make this road by walking, knowing that we do not journey by ourselves. We journey together, and we journey with God.